All right, I thought I'd give you a little bit of information about my solar panels and the performance that I've had since I installed these late March last year. And I've noticed a significant degradation. So I started using my engineering background to try to troubleshoot this and understand what is going on. And so a little background up here. Let's see, I got to do it on this thing. So I've got 36 320 watt mono PERC Canadian solar panels. So you can see the picture over here. These are all lined up. Pretty much filled up my whole roof over my garage. This equals out to 11.52 kilowatt. And so my cost was around $24,000, but I got a utility rebate of $4,500, 30% government tax credit, and then the final system cost was $13,550. So roughly a little bit over $1 a watt. Now, based on some calculations I'll show you below, this thing is predicted to save $135 per month on my electricity. So if you take that $13,550, it comes back to a payback of 8.4 years. So when you multiply that 135 times 12, you end up with 8.4 year payback, which doesn't sound bad, does it? And then a 12% return on investment. Here's the individual costs. So I had 2 inverters, and those 36 panels was almost 11,000. Then we had racking, it was $2,000. Labor for install from a solar installer. Highly recommend this guy, Gain Solar. Maybe he'll give me a discount on my next job, right? Mechanical install labor, electrical materials, a bunch of wiring and conduit stuff, permit, utility fee for a new meter, scaffolding and transient protectors. So that's where my total cost comes. So there's a tool called PV Watts, and I highly recommend before you do any solar job that you sit down and at least go through and use this tool. And this is based on 30 years of weather data. And now I'm in North Georgia. The closest station that this pulls data from is Athens, which is thinking about an hour and a half away. So it's not that far away. But anyways, you get your watts per meter squared calculation, the projected energy generation, the energy value based on your electric rates, and then these were a couple calculations I did. One was the energy per day, and that's just dividing by the number of days in a month. So I captured the month. The only variable in here obviously is February. You've got 1 month that's different every 4 years or something, so I just picked the standard. So anyways, this is where you end up with the value of $135 per month. So that's the average. Now, so this kind of told me what my savings should be, and I've been keeping track of this periodically, what's really happening. And something curious is occurring here. So here's I installed let me see if, do I still have that up? Oh, wrong button. Okay, so I've got this thing called TED Pro. And I put these current sensors in my panels. So I have one where my solar is coming in, and so it captures how much energy is being generated by my solar. And then I have current sensors on where my utility comes in, and I can tell how much I'm either feeding back or using from the utility. And so at this moment right now, it says I'm generating 8.7 kilowatts from my system. And this is a pretty fancy deal, but I can come over here and I can look at graphically what's going on, and you can look at this over a period of time. So like if I pick 24 hours, So this is where the solar was shutting down at the end of the day, and then you've got some appliances turning on and off during the middle of the night, and then all of a sudden solar starts up again during the day. So this is, you can see this is indicating there's a little bit of clouds. In fact, I'm looking out the window right now, so there's a little bit of clouds at the peak during the day that is kind of interfering with me getting the peak amount of energy, but I'm still getting a significant amount of energy from my solar today. So this is going to be a great day, just like I had previously yesterday. But anyways, this gives me information that I can then go over to look at. There's a tool that I can get some detailed data. I should say rolled up data. Give it a second here. Okay. Now I took this information, I typed it in for each month so I could capture it, but this tells me the kilowatt net for like this day was 9.5 kilowatts and I generated 60.4 kilowatts. So on this particular day, this is saying that I actually sold back almost 18 kilowatts because I generated 64 and I just didn't use that much. Down here I sold back 25 kilowatts, 26 kilowatts almost. And then this is today, and then this is yesterday, so I sold back 31 kilowatts and I generated 66 and a half, which was a really good day. But if you look at the majority of these days, you'll notice that instead of being negative like this, they were all positive. In fact, you'll notice that there's quite a few days that are like, I only generated 3 kilowatts that day, 3 kilowatts here, 2.9, 3.5, 3.1. So those are days that we had just incredible rain all day long, not some front blowing through just for a couple hours. It was just all day. So February just was horrendously poor performance. So anyways, I plotted all this up. Let's go look at it. And so here's the generation for the month, and you can see these in black were very close to the prediction. In fact, I have a percentage of against the prediction. So I was down 6%, down 4, and then above, and then -6, -17, -19, 32, 48. You can see, so basically February has been, I'm running about half of what the prediction was. And I was down 30% for December. So I started looking at, well, what in the heck is going on? I mean, I was falling off rapidly. And I knew the weather was bad, but you don't sit there and look at it hour by hour and see what's happening. So it's a good thing to kind of keep track. But, you know, another data point that I went and looked at is how many days was I less than 50% of predicted generation. And you can see, you know, from when we first installed it until September, it was only 1, 2, or 3 days that I was only 50% or less. And then you can see that I'm roughly running about half the month where I was running, you know, less than 50% generation. So this is what it looks like graphically. So this is the that first column showing the bars running here of how much I generated, and then this is the prediction up here. And you can see that there's this huge separation that's occurring from the prediction to the generation that we actually had. So I started, you know, ever since I installed the thing, I had to clear out some trees where I was getting shading, and I've completely cleared out all around my house anything that I saw shading during the day. I mean, when it was a perfectly sunny day and I noticed I wasn't getting the amount of energy, I went, looked, and saw did I have any shading that was occurring on the cells, and if there was, I made a note which tree it was, and we got rid of it. And I would keep up with the cleanliness, the same thing. And so that's not been an issue. Whether there was any problem with the system, and I'll show you how I evaluated whether there was a problem with the system or not. And then I also had found that there's an issue with the mono PERC LeTID, and we'll discuss that in a minute as well. And then, you know, I already kind of knew it was more than likely the weather. The weather has just been horrendous, so I'm curious, did something major change? Because the calculations that for the projections for, you know, the savings on this was based on 30 years of weather data. So just kind of curious, did something new happen here? So let's go look at some of the next to this. So this is the raw data for every single day rolled up of how much energy I generated versus what the average for the month should have been. And one of the things you can see is that when we first installed this thing, we would have just a couple days here and there where we were running a little bit low. And I mean, this is kind of like the normal weather pattern you'd expect. You know, some rain would kind of roll in maybe in the afternoon and then be gone. But you can see that something changed. You can probably just draw a line right here, and you can see that all of a sudden now we have the majority of this is white space now. And so we definitely in a huge period of time, starting, so if we just drew right here, so this is right about the beginning of October to present, we've had just hardly any power generation. It's the majority of it is below the line instead of, and that's why we saw this thing falling off up here. So I was wondering, well, is there one of the things you can kind of look up here, and you can see that in April I was generating almost 70 kilowatts hours, and I'm running about 66 on the last really sunny day that I had here, so that's not too far off. And there are some things to keep in mind when you look at this prediction that PV watts, sorry, right here. My biggest production periods of time are based on right here from March through October. So you can see I get about 49.03, then 50, and I'm like 46 is in here, and then I'm back to 50. So even February is a fairly good production day at 45, but yet I got half that amount. But you can see in the winter time, it falls off. One, the days are super short, and you just have such a high angle of the sun, so low angle I should say. So really the short days are the biggest cause there during the winter time. One of the things I did is I went in and pulled out any measurements that were above 60 kilowatt hours, and I plotted them on here because I wanted to try to see if, since I'm coming into some of the peak period is one of March and October are my highest peak production periods, I wanted to see if I'm going to start getting back up to 69 or 70, and I'll show you in a minute why that's important, because if we have the mono PERC problem that was listed, I'm going to tell this later. If I have a mono PERC problem, I may not ever get back to where I was when we first installed this thing, because it has to do with the it's basically light damage and thermal damage that happens to your panel, and your panels degrade at a much more rapid rate. Off the top of my head, I was trying to think, it's something like these panels should have a 15% degradation over 25 years or something, but yet they were showing with this LETID problem that you could actually lose 10% or more in the first year under high temperature, high light conditions, and that would just kind of really screw your payback time if that was going to be the case. But looking at this chart, I'm thinking that by the time I get into March, I'm going to be up to 69 or 70, since I'm only in February and I'm already at 66 on a pretty sunny day. So we'll have to see what happens. So let's go back over here. I found an article. I wonder if I can get farther over here. Yeah, here we go. I found an article, and it's MIC electrical problems with mono PERC solar panels technology, and it says they degrade over time. Traditionally, degradation has been tested, accounted for in panel specifications, while higher quality panels degrade at a slower rate. 1% per year is acceptable for high level panels. So yeah, but I think mine are, these things are now less than 1%, so there might be like 0.75 or something % per year. However, PERC technology has become like a major player. You're seeing, like in my case, 320 watt panels. That was just unheard of a few years ago, and it's because these PERC designs have come up. And but there's a problem. They first noticed it in the polycrystalline, and it's called the light and elevated temperature induced degradation. And they then tested the mono cells and found that they were equally susceptible to this. In fact, this is saying field testing PERC panels have shown degradation rates in excess of 8 to 10% in 3 years of field testing. So that's going to be a problem if they specify that you're really only going to have like 15% degradation in 25 years, and here in 3 years you're going to have 10% degradation. That's going to really have some ticked off customers, but most people aren't even looking at the detail like I am, and it's going to be hard to tell. So based on what I see, I'm not seeing that I have that degradation. It may be because I've got a 42% slope on my panels, and so in the big part of the summer, maybe I'm not getting as much of an impact because of the 42-degree slant that I have on my panels. I'm not sure. Or maybe they've resolved this problem already. I'm not sure. There's something. The article, when you go look at it, they tried to get an answer from Canadian Solar, and they didn't feel like that they got a proper answer, so they weren't convinced that they had actually corrected this problem or not. But we'll just have to wait and see. So back to my little checklist. Shading, cleanliness, problem with the system, mono PERC. We're back to major weather pattern, which we have just had rain weeks on end. You know, what has changed that 30 years of data didn't account for this? And if you've been following the grand solar minimum, there is a concern that galactic cosmic rays are actually the biggest driver of global climate, and it has to do with cloud nucleation. And so when the sun goes silent, like it is right now, there's virtually no solar spot activity. Our shield is down on the Earth, and therefore we're actually impacted by galactic cosmic rays at a much higher rate. And there's lots. I should have grabbed one of the charts showing our cosmic rays increasing tremendously. But if you go watch this Oppenheimer Ranch video where he's uploaded this one guy that's doing significant research on this, this will help you understand. But I believe that my watts per meter squared indirect measurement here is showing that effect that's occurring. Now the problem is, I haven't seen really good data yet to say how much are we going to be impacted. I mean, I put the biggest system I could on my roof, and I still could do east and west, but south is the most preferred. But it's so expensive to do solar. I don't know if I can add any more to be able to get completely self-sufficient here. But you need to keep in mind your solar may not produce nearly the amount that they're telling you it will, and it's because of this cloud nucleation problem. And I knew about this when we installed it, and I just had not seen any data saying that we were impacted by this yet. But starting in the fall, I believe we actually are being impacted, and I believe that we are. It's here. Grand solar minimum effects are starting. I've thought about using wind, but man, there is nothing out there that is of anywhere nearly as good as solar. Solar, what's nice is you just put up there and you don't have to do anything. Maybe once every 10 years you got to go change your inverters because they, for whatever reason, haven't designed those as reliably as the solar panels. And batteries you probably got to do every 10 years. Same problem there. They just don't have the longevity. Windmills, no, there's quite a bit of maintenance, and I'm not real fond of climbing up on top of my roof, and you also just don't get the biggest bang for the buck for those things. So, but I think that's going to have to come along. All this time where we've had bad weather and rain, man, if we had wind, and so we could have been generating. The nice thing about wind is you get, be collecting at nighttime where you can't with solar. So I don't know. I'm going to keep an eye out because I think that's the only thing I can do to try to mitigate this. If we're going to lose 50 to 75% of our solar, we got to come up with another way to get it back, get some electricity back some other way. And I think wind might be that technology. Or we're just going to be totally relying on the utility, and solar was just a big hole that we poured a bunch of money into. Don't know yet. All right, so that's my talk today for this, and I hope this has been something that you think about if you go to install solar, because it looks like this is going to be a major issue for the industry. If we're just going to have this kind of weather, solar is still better than about anything else I can think out there right now, but it's not as going to be nearly as good as they had purported it to be. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Hey, hope you're having a great day. I got to get out and stack firewood. Split everything yesterday, so now I got to stack it. That's half the work. Talk to you later.